Well, hello there. How is everyone? You amazing, beautiful, wonderful people. It's Wednesday, baby. It's Wednesday. Wednesday. And this is video 2 of, I believe, 5. That's it, baby. We've got 5 videos today. 4 and then a live. So keep your eyes peeled. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, smash like, all that good stuff to make sure that as videos come up, you are notified, because we know notifications are sketchier than the Moscow Police Department. Anyway, we're going to get straight into the meat and potatoes as we have some stuff to go through. Now, we're sticking with the Idaho 4 in this video, and we're just going through some current red flags. Now, don't get me wrong, there are more red flags in this case than you can now count. That's my opinion. I know some people think that this is all plain sailing, but it's bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre. Now, I did even see that. Did you know that the Gonsalves family page is now monetized on Facebook as well? So if you want to go and show your support to the Gonsalves family, you can now join the Gonsalves Family Army Facebook page for a monthly subscription. There you go. See, that's my good deed for the day. Anyway, we're going to go through some of these red flags, these current red flags today, okay? So let's just have a check on red flag number 1. So red flag number 1, give me a reason why you didn't take the defendant's DNA rather than the father's, a paternal familial match, which is typical 99.9997% and 99.998% matched. You know what I mean? Again, we've spoken about this multiple times. Why did you just not get Bryan Kohberger's DNA? There's in no world does this make sense. There's multiple ways he could have done it. They could have obtained a fucking warrant and gone and got it from his door handle of his car, swabbed his door handle from his car, swabbed his door handle from his apartment. They could have done all this, but instead there was this fucking convoluted traveling over to Pennsylvania, going through the trash and all this. Make that make sense? Will somebody please explain to me what the point of that was? What the point of it was? Why not just get hold of Bryan Kohberger? Just pull him in as a person of interest. You've got a white Hyundai Elantra. You're saying a white Hyundai Elantra. He drives a white Hyundai Elantra. You're saying that he's around the area or whatever. Why not go to him directly and pull him in? Please, somebody, whatever side of the fence you're on, please, someone explain that situation to me, because that to me at the moment is a red flag. So what else have we got? We've got number 2 here, which second red flag. The transcript specifically states Payne was aware the FBI's work did not implicate nor provide evidence of probable cause that led to implicate the defendant in the attack as a result of their IgG work product. And why is that important? And I get that there's some people, especially the guilters, will turn around and say, well, that's not how this works. They do the work, they bring it forward as a tip and say, look, this person could be of interest, go and check him out. But the IgG work itself didn't conclude that there was a connection. That's the big issue here, isn't it? That's the big issue, that this sample goes into Codus, which we're going to touch on in a second. It then goes to another lab, and then it goes, 2 labs. It goes through 3 places, doesn't it? And then, so it goes to Codus, goes to was it Texas, then it goes to Offram, then the FBI get it, and then they do a test on it, and they stipulate that it's partially ambiguous. And just look, they all of a sudden spring up with Bryan Kohberger's name. We believe this is someone that you need to take notice of. This is a tip for you. Go and do some work on that. And the rest is history. But their work didn't produce a result that would say that Bryan Kohberger is connected to this crime. So why did they implicate him in the crime if none of the work on the IgG determined that he was connected to it? Maybe I'm just not understanding it right, but that's how the documentation reads in my uneducated position. That's how it reads to me, that the FBI couldn't conclude through the work that they done that it was Bryan Kohberger, but they somehow had his name. Let's go next. So the next one, third red flag, prosecution was aware of unknown male A and B, a third male, and possibly a fourth male. Payne decided because the FBI gave local law enforcement Kohberger's name, first male A and B was set aside. How is that not a red flag? So his decision to do that is because the FBI tells him to. So would I be right in assuming that had the FBI not given Bryan Kohberger's name, that his natural instinct as a law officer, would that have not been to have gone down the road with the DNA samples that were found at the scene? Because that would, in my opinion, that would read that his investigational, the way that he worked, was based upon the FBI's influence of giving him somebody else's name, not of his natural ability to actually look at the evidence at the crime scene and do what needs to be done with the evidence that the crime scene gives him. Now, he then has to make an excuse for that, which he turns around and says, look, it's the Codus situation. We've already got details in there. We can't add another sample into it because that will fuck things up, which I think is going to come up shortly. But let's go to the next one. So, fourth red flag, right? There was blood on gloves outside the house, noticed in the transcript. Blood on a handrail was discovered also. The unknown males were discovered in the immediate area of the crime scene, which feeds into this. These are all kind of connected. You've literally got blood at the scene of this crime, and you've got gloves outside with blood on them. How is that not a red flag? Again, it goes back to just say the FBI hadn't give Bryan Kohberger's name. Now, bearing this in mind, and this is important to understand, that Bryan Kohberger, his family, not long after the arrest of Bryan Kohberger and all this kicked off, the Dana Smithers situation was still ongoing. Bryan Kohberger's parents were called forth by a grand jury. And then it was then determined that Bryan Kohberger was not involved in the Dana Smithers situation. But that was after he was arrested for this. So it goes hand in hand that the FBI, before this crime took place, were very likely surveilling Bryan Kohberger because they believed that he was involved in Dana Smithers' death. Tell me I'm wrong. Somebody tell me I'm wrong. And that is why the FBI gave Moscow Police Department Bryan Kohberger's name. And what happens there is that because that happens, the Moscow Police Department failed to carry through on the blood that was found at the scene of this crime. The blood on the fucking glove. The blood on the glove, man. If someone goes into this house, does this crime, they're wearing gloves, they come out the house, they chuck the gloves outside. They want to leave the gloves there because they don't want to take them. If they're getting into a car, they're not taking them into the car. They're not going to touch the door handle with it, are they? They're going to ditch them and then leave. Next. The defendant's car was examined 3 times using several techniques seeking evidence, and none was found. Bryan Kohberger's car, completely clean. And not only was it clean, there was no evidence to suggest that any attempt had been made to conceal DNA, conceal anything. There was no evidence of destruction of evidence. Make that make sense. If you're saying that he drove his own fucking car there, just think, right? Just think if he went in his own car, goes to this crime and does it. Even if he's done stuff in that car to try and protect it, you would think that someone would think, just to make sure that everything's okay and I've covered all my bases, I'm going to clean the fucker anyway. I'm going to make sure that there is nothing on there. I'm going to do whatever needs to be done to make sure. But there is no evidence of that. No evidence whatsoever. So did he really drive in his own car to this place, do this crime, and absolutely fucking not get any single thing, bearing in mind how microscopic DNA can be or blood can be, just a tiny, tiny little bit. Perspiration, blood, anything, hair, going into a house that's had a fucking dog walking around in it. Nothing in the car. Nothing whatsoever. Nothing. Not a thing. Not a whisper. Are you telling me that that's right? Red flag, mate. Red flags are everywhere. So, number 6, 3 other males were not considered suspects, knowing there were profiles obtained from males A and B, but the excuse was because the profile had been loaded into Codus, any remaining profiles could not be loaded. Now, is that right? Bearing in mind that they didn't get a hit in Codus. Didn't get one. So nothing came up in Codus. So why could you then not add it? What if the FBI hadn't have given Bryan Kohberger's details, but they had these multiple samples? Are we saying that we wouldn't have been able, we could have only put one in? Or are we considering that you would have put multiple ones in there? Or what? I don't get it. You've got multiple sources of DNA at the crime scene. Again, take Bryan Kohberger out of the equation for a second and you're left with them. What do? Do they not test them all? They only test one? Make that make sense. 7th, a protection order was requested and granted for 3 males known to be present. Because blood was located in and outside the house, there is an absolutely probable cause for suspicion more than one individual is involved, particularly noting 2 different samples of male DNA was known and 2 males known to be found in the crime scene, yet only the defendant is held on murder charges. Again, in a crime that we have consistently felt that more than one person was involved. This was not just a single, lone, solitary person that went into this house and done this crime. You've got evidence to suggest that there are multiple perpetrators, yet you not only ignore them, but you grant a protection order for those. Why? How? Again, that is a red flag. It's a red flag, which takes us to our 8th and final red flag of the video. Prosecution and the state wants to exclude the IGG from trial. This is because the FBI's work did not insist nor convey the defendant was a suspect to local law enforcement known by Brett Payne before the arrest. The fact that they don't want it added, now, don't get me wrong, Ann Taylor has now come along and she's agreed. She's agreed to it. And again, in the first video today, I are telling you why I believe that Ann Taylor is happy with that and why they are happy to suggest that, okay, then we'll go with Bryan Kohberger's DNA is on there. You're saying it is. We'll go with it. And then we're going to go down the route of showing you and potentially proving that that was planted because our client wasn't in the area. But the fact that they don't want it added when... If that was what led to Bryan Kohberger, you would want to show the entire chain of custody, if you like. It's because it didn't. It didn't, and it just leads to confusing the matter. It will confuse people. They don't want people to be confused. They just want people to say, right, we've got a knife sheath, we've got his DNA, and it's right. And Ann Taylor is allowing it. And you have to ask why. Why is Ann Taylor allowing them to absolutely say, yeah, Bryan Kohberger's DNA was there, definitely there? Ask yourself that question when she's supposed to be defending Bryan Kohberger. Now, that would lead me to believe that she is doing it because she could potentially come along and prove that Bryan Kohberger weren't there, and then they have a lot of explaining to do. Let me know what you think. What's your red flag currently? Because, again, we do these series of red flags, and as time progresses, more start to appear. But as it stands now, with the recent documents you've seen, the transcripts you've read, these latest docs, what is now your red flag? On both sides of the argument, because I'm open to hear. If you're not a prick, I will listen to you, even if you believe that Bryan Kohberger is guilty. If you want to be a prick about it, then I'm just going to block you, because I don't like pricks. Love you all. Mwah.